Good morning, my name is Josh from Cyclones Oz, and here is your detailed forecast update for February 3rd, 2025. A lot to get through today. We're going to update you guys on the rainfall up in North Queensland, where immense falls have caused major flooding across much of the Herbert and Lower Burdekin region. We're expecting more rainfall to come as well up there. We're also going to be talking about a powerful tropical cyclone in the making offshore from Western Australia, and we'll just touch on the general tropical weather forecast as well and take a look at the long range. All of that plus more coming up in today's weather forecast. If you are brand new to the channel, please consider subscribing, but let's get stuck straight into a brief update across North Queensland into far North Queensland along the Cassowary coast for the amount of rainfall that has fallen over the last couple of days. Now the rainfall is, and this is a bit of good news, it has eased off temporarily overnight around the Townsville area, but the low pressure system is expected to move offshore throughout the remainder of this morning, and as such that rainfall is not done yet for Townsville. Unfortunately though, it certainly is not done. The flooding emergency is certainly not done for those areas around Cardwell and Ingham, where overnight a further 450 millimetres has fallen at Ingham, and a further 550 millimetres has fallen at Cardwell. So some ridiculous rainfall accumulations again overnight. Palama Dam alert, they've had 620 millimetres overnight, taking their total for the last week to 1,780 millimetres. That's right, 1,780 millimetres of rainfall for the last week, and the majority of that has fallen in the last 4.5 days. So some really significant rainfall observations have been reported, and widespread falls between 800 and 1,500 millimetres between Cardwell down towards Ayr have also been reported. Townsville in the thick of it with about 800 to 900 millimetres, and again with more rainfall expected to come through throughout the course of today. You can see on the radar imagery that these falls are still looking moderate to heavy at times. They have, like I said, eased off around the Townsville area and for areas further south as well, down towards Charters Towers, which is also experiencing major flooding problems right now. So thankfully the rainfall has eased off temporarily there. It's given the rivers a little bit of respite, and it looks like the Bowl River as well is now starting to drop a little bit, which is very good news indeed. It's below the major flooding alert for the first time in about 72 hours, and it looks like steady drops are expected throughout the remainder of today there, unless we get an absolute boatload of rainfall, which we're now going to talk about in the forecast throughout the remainder of today. So the rainfall forecast is still not looking very pretty for Townsville. You can see throughout the remainder of today plenty more rainfall is expected to fall, and it's expected to be predominantly offshore, but we will still be seeing those heavy showers and storms streaming in along the coastline here. We're expecting heavy falls later on this afternoon and evening between Rollingston out towards Giru and Ayr, so just along this coastal strip here. It looks like the rainbow might actually kick in, fortunately for Townsville, which, I mean, it could have kicked in a couple of days ago. That would have been really nice of it, but it looks like the rainbow might actually kick in for Townsville, with heavy falls expected further towards the north of the town up towards Bluewater Creek and Bushlands Beach, Rollingston, and then further north up towards Palama Dam, and then further south down towards Giru, Ayr and Home Hill. We're expecting some heavier falls down there, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with the rainfall tonight. I am expecting that rain dome to kick in, like I said, at least temporarily for Townsville, with those heavy showers expected to continue throughout tonight and into early tomorrow morning for adjacent and surrounding communities around the Townsville area. The rainfall does continue through early Wednesday morning and will be heavy at times along the North Queensland coastline, even down towards the Central Queensland coastline as well throughout Tuesday and Wednesday, with plenty of thunderstorms expected inland as well. So we could be seeing some significant rainfall accumulation still along the coastline and then further inland. The rainfall finally easing off by the looks of things later on this week, sometime on Friday and into Saturday, but showers and storms lingering right out towards Friday and Saturday. So unfortunately the rainfall emergency is not going to be over just yet, and for Townsville again it is just kind of getting started up once again, with those heavy falls overnight now starting to raise those river levels a little bit more. The Ross River Dam is at it's closing in on 200%. I'm not actually sure of the exact number, but it has continued to rise once again overnight and is now approaching very serious flooding alerts. And we've also had some really significant flooding into some of the suburbs around Townsville, some major flooding of Railway Estate and adjacent suburbs as well. So it really has been an all-round disaster for Townsville. And don't even get me started on North Queensland around the Ingham, the Halifax and the Lucinda area. There has been some catastrophic flooding up there. If you've been seeing the photos I've been putting out on Facebook, you can see it's pretty much a total loss around Ingham. Same deal with Halifax as well. These floods are comparable to the rainfall event of 1967, certainly not something that we're hoping to see anytime soon, and not something we're likely to see for at least the next 100 years. This is a really, really significant rainfall event, and again, rainfall accumulations, they have actually exceeded the initial forecast of 1,500 millimetres. How I was saying that that was a low ball, that was a high ball number, and that's turned out to be a low ball number there, with a lot of rainfall accumulations here between 1,300 and 1,700 millimetres now. We've had some very significant falls. And like I said, it is not over yet. Let's touch on those rainfall accumulations throughout the remainder of today. You can see falls up to about 200 millimetres expected along the North Queensland coastline. Again, that pales in comparison to the rainfall that we've already been seeing, but up towards Palumba Dam we could be seeing a further 200 millimetres. Townsville, the rainfall should be slightly lighter at about 100 to 150 millimetres, and again, I'm not 100% sure if they're going to pick up all of that 100 millimetres. I'd be surprised if Townsville picked up any more than 150 millimetres throughout the duration of the remainder of this rainfall event. Again, it doesn't really matter at this point. It doesn't have much of a bearing on what's already happened around Townsville. A further 100 millimetres, whilst it is a lot of rainfall on a normal day, it is kind of a drop in the ocean compared to what they've already had here, and the flooding could not get much worse around Townsville. Further down towards Guru, we're expecting about a 200 to 250 millimetre deluge sometime later on this afternoon and into this evening. Down towards Ayr as well, about 200 millimetres expected to materialise there. And then as we push this forecast forward out for the remainder of this week, you can see rainfall accumulations a further 100 to 150, up to about 200 millimetres actually on top of that throughout Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday. Finally on Friday evening the rainfall will begin to clear, but it will be a lot patchier through Wednesday, Thursday and Friday. The Bureau of Meteorology is still expecting triple figure rainfall accumulations around Townsville on both today and into Tuesday as well, so we will have to keep a close eye on things. There certainly is some big time rainfall that's going to be in the vicinity. Further down the coastline we're expecting rainfall accumulations up to about 200 millimetres down towards Bowen, and then depending on what showers and storms materialise into the Proserpine River catchment and the Pioneer River catchment, we could be seeing about 100 to 250 millimetres further of rainfall on top of what's already fallen there over the next 5 days as well. The rainfall further inland will be between 80 and 150 millimetres, with spots up to about 250 millimetres around Charters Towers and then down towards Mount Coolin as well. I think the numbers down here are a little bit bullish, especially considering if you compare them to another forecast model, for example, then they're a lot lighter indeed. But yeah, in terms of rainfall accumulations inland, between 80 and 150 millimetres, with spot totals up to 200 millimetres are possible out there. The Burdekin River's already really struggling at this time as well. I didn't actually realise how far the Burdekin extended up into Queensland. I knew it went up to about here, but it's now starting to drain the backside of these mountains, which I didn't actually see happening, and as such the Burdekin is currently receiving some major flooding around Charters Towers, with water levels approaching 4 or 5 metres above the bridges around there and about 2 metres above the major flooding alert. So some really significant flooding now beginning to unfold in the Charters Towers area, and same with the Horton River as well, which I didn't say was a major risk of flooding, but they're starting to receive some pretty significant flooding up there. Now, just before I go to the North Queensland forecast, or the far North Queensland forecast rather, we will talk about that flooding just briefly. So starting from the north and heading further south, Tully and Johnston rivers I'll get to in just a few minutes, but the Herbert River is starting to finally stop its tremendous rising that we've seen overnight. It's still 500 millimetres in the catchment, but there's not an awful lot higher that this water can get, considering that now it's just flowing into open plain basically. And I imagine once we get a few satellite pictures, once this cloud clears, we're going to be seeing a massive inland sea begin to open up around the Ingham and the Halifax area. There is water everywhere up here, and I cannot stress that enough. Again, Ingham and Halifax flooded. Ingham's pretty much been totally flooded as well, and you can see just how far away they are from the Herbert River, with water reaching right out towards the Ingham airport out here. Same deal with Trevin as well. So the Stone River and the Herbert River have burst their banks, and you can see the Ingham River is probably a couple of kilometres wide at this point. It's bordering on being an inland sea pretty much. Down towards Halifax as well, some really significant damage has been reported down there, and I've been seeing the photos of the floodwaters. It's really, really scary stuff indeed. Further south towards Bambura and some of the creeks extending between Bambura, including the Palumba Dam, and then down towards Rollingston, we've seen some major flooding down there as well, some catastrophic flooding. But these creeks they're short and straight, so they do a really good job at draining the water right out into this part of the Coral Sea. So we're not overly concerned about the damage here, but these creeks do cause significant damage here and there to roads, and it looks like they've severed the roads at certain points along the Bruce Highway up here. So between major landslides and some major flooding through some of the rivers here, I believe the river that flows through Montagny here, the Crystal Creek, that's had some really significant flooding as well, and I believe the Crystal Creek has cut the Bruce Highway and the railway line at Montagny as well, but again, we're still waiting for confirmation on that as well. Down towards Bluewater Creek and the Black River as well, some really significant flooding there. Again, the Bruce Highway, that's getting its name there for a second, has been severed at both points there. I imagine it'll be pretty quick to be restored around Bluewater Creek and the Black River, but again, some significant flooding there. The Bolly River, like I said, now starting to drop finally. It has been at that major flooding alert for the last couple of days, and it's finally gone under that, and I don't reckon it's going to go above it now, with the water levels now rapidly dropping. Ross River is still holding strong, well above the major flooding alerts at multiple points along the Ross River as well. It has dropped slightly at some points overnight, which is very good news indeed. The rainfall wasn't as heavy as initially expected, or feared, I should say. I mean, we did expect a lot of heavy rainfall, and it has materialised, but we could have been much worse off in Townsville this morning, put it that way. And like I said, Lake Ross is still flying at close to 200% of its dam capacity at this time, so some really significant flooding downstream is currently occurring and still expected to occur throughout the remainder of today. Like I said, the Horton River, which flows through Giru, has had some, not unexpected, but it had some pretty significant flooding that has caught a few people off guard down there. Giru is currently okay by the sounds of things, but the Bruce Highway has once again been severed at that location, so we will have to keep a close eye on things around the Horton River. It certainly has burst its banks, that's for sure, but I do believe that around Giru, they have been fine at this moment here, but again, the water levels are still rising, so we're going to have to keep a very close eye on Giru throughout the remainder of today. Down towards the Burdekin as well, air is going to be fine by the looks of things from the rainfall here. It will take a lot to flood air, and I don't think the Burdekin's just got that water volume in it just yet, and considering it is supported and held back by a dam, I think that they will be fine, but some really, really significant flooding has taken place further downstream on the Burdekin River, and as such, we are still expecting some significant volumes of water to be moving through the air area and out towards the Coral Sea there over the coming couple of days. Like I said, some really significant flooding overnight at Charters Towers, where water levels are now approaching the major flooding alert for the first time in a couple of years there, and it will be their worst flooding event around Charters Towers as well since 2019, so certainly one for the history books and certainly one to remember as well. The Proserpine and the Pioneer Rivers have dropped below flooding alerts this morning as well, so that's some very good news down there around Proserpine and Mackay, but we're talking about rainfall there that's had about 2 or 3 days to ease, so whilst they're not expecting anything else, it's hardly a surprise that they've dropped below the minor flooding alerts. But of course, spare a thought for those struggling up in far North Queensland right now. It's going to be a long time until it's like it was again. I mean, it took them a year to recover from Cyclone Jasper up in far North Queensland. It's probably going to take them longer than that around this part of Queensland, considering the massive scope of the damage that's been experienced up here, and the fact that the rainfall is actually comparable in a much drier position as well of Australia. The rainfall has been comparable to that of what fell in Cyclone Jasper, so the flooding is just so much worse. And like I said, a lot of rainfall observations now exceeding 1,500 millimetres. Like I said, 1,783 millimetres, I think it was, at Palama Dam Alert over the past 5 days. So some massive rainfall accumulations indeed, and that's been supported again by the last 600 millimetres that fell overnight. So the rainfall there is almost hard to imagine, almost hard to believe at this time. Thankfully, though, looking forward as you punch this rainfall forecast forward, there's not an awful lot on the cards now for the North Queensland. Far North Queensland could still cop some significant falls, and we're going to get into that right now. They've had some massive rainfall accumulations overnight, again, along the far North Queensland coastline, with a couple of 100 millimetres falling around Babinda, Innisfail, and Tarlee. That rainfall now beginning to ease off at this point. We're still expecting plenty of showers and storms throughout the remainder of today and into tonight and into early tomorrow morning. Showers and storms also continuing through Tuesday and Wednesday, and the rainfall around far North Queensland does not clear out until about Thursday afternoon or Thursday evening, with a few showers and storms still expected through Friday as well. And even looking beyond that, I mean, far North Queensland just receiving the constant barrage of showers that they normally get here, and it looks like another rainful event for far North Queensland, at least from a southerly flow, might pop up around sort of the 13th, 14th or 15th of February at this time here. We will keep a close eye on that. Again, take that forecast with a very heavy pinch of salt. We're looking long range and in the tropics, of course, so the forecast is going to be quite unreliable, but just my hunch is, and I've seen it over the forecast for the last couple of days, that between the 12th and the 16th of February, around that mid-February time period, we could be seeing some significant rainfall around the far northern reaches of Queensland, but thankfully it will miss the North Queensland and the central Queensland coastline. It looks like it's just going to be exclusive of the Daintree rainforest, with a few showers moving into the Cassowary coast as well. Still though, some significant rainfall accumulations are possible. It certainly is shaping up to be a wet couple of months up there, as it always is at this time of the year, but it looks like it is going to be especially wet this wet season, which I mean, a lot of people very happy for, very excited for, but when it does come to flooding, it certainly is quite a scary prospect indeed, considering they're already saturated up there. But yeah, I mean, in terms of moisture values along the North Queensland coastline, they do not need any more rainfall, that is for sure. I've never seen the amount of rainfall in 7 years of weather tracking around this part of North Queensland here, with soil moisture values just so far above the average across this part of North Queensland. So very good to see, very exciting to see for the agricultural communities up there, but it has gotten to the point where it is just too much rainfall at this time. That does it for Queensland's north coast, the tropics forecast for Queensland. I do hope I've helped out at least in some way, and thank you for all of the support lately on the channel as well. It has been much appreciated, all of the donations, all of the kind messages and kind comments. So if you've got any questions or comments, or you'd like anything answered, then please let me know in the comment section down below, and I help you to the best of my ability. But in terms of North Queensland, that does it in terms of the coverage up there. We're going to be releasing further updates on this system as well, and if rainfall does continue to fall, we certainly will be releasing more coverage on it. But this time, that does look like the absolute worst of it is over, with just a few showers and maybe a couple of 100mm coming through later on this afternoon and evening around Townsville down towards Guru. But again, that forecast is not quite set in stone at this time. It's still a little bit uncertain, and the chances of that are very much dependent on where this low pressure system's core does head, which is going to be along the coastline. But if it heads inland, then we're going to be seeing that heavy rainfall. At this time, it's still a little bit uncertain. In terms of the long range forecast for parts of southeast Queensland into the northeastern parts of New South Wales, and this is why I haven't been covering them over the last couple of days, is that there's just not an awful lot to be talking about. In fact, you can see nothing in the way of significant rainfall events, and then even over the next 4 or 5 days, there's nothing in the way of significant thunderstorm outbreaks as well. And we've seen this for the last couple of days. We might be seeing Wednesday or Thursday some good storms fire up into the central parts of New South Wales, and then Thursday into the northeast of New South Wales and the southeast of Queensland. But in terms of a proper severe thunderstorm outbreak, we're definitely going to be waiting until at least mid-February to see a proper severe thunderstorm outbreak across the southeast of Queensland. Across New South Wales, nothing in the way of stupidly crazy severe thunderstorms is expected out there. And in terms of other weather forecasts and outlooks around the remainder of Australia, we have had the rumbles of activity in terms of a tropical low across interior parts of the Northern Territory developing sometime later this week. If it does develop, it will likely develop in the Gulf of Carpentaria, and you can see it here beginning to develop from an enhanced convection over the Gulf of Carpentaria, extending into parts of the Northern Territory as we push through Saturday and Sunday, the 8th and the 9th of February. And then all of that moisture gets dragged into a low pressure system that could develop across interior parts of Western Australia or the Northern Territory. But again, forecast model support for that isn't looking too hot at this time, so we will have to keep a close eye on things. It looks like we might get a tropical low spin up either because of the brown ocean effect or over waters around the Northern Territory or in the Northern Territory even. So it looks like sometime into the early to mid parts of February we'll be seeing some kind of tropical rumblings here. Either way, plenty of rainfall expected across the tropical north coast of the Northern Territory, up around the Darwin and the Katherine area. We could be seeing plenty of rainfall there over the next 14 days, up to about 300 or 400mm of the stuff, and plenty of rainfall also feeding in towards the Gulf of Carpentaria as well. It's reciprocated between other forecast models, and you can see between Karumba and Weeper, both forecast models, the Eastern WF and the GFS forecast model, expecting up to 1,000mm of rainfall to occur there over the next 14 days. So very interesting stuff indeed, and plenty of rainfall there to go around, which is very good news because they are struggling for a little bit of rainfall at this time. Anyways, that does it for the Northern Territory, and that pretty much does it for mainland Australia in terms of rainfall. I would just briefly like to touch on the temperatures across Western Australia. Of course, it is summer, and I don't want to be hearing the "it's summer" comments in the comment section down below, but it is going to get hot across the Gascoyne and parts of the Pilbara region later on today. We're expecting tops to now approach 50 degrees Celsius across some locations into the Pilbara and the Gascoyne region, especially around Coral Bay and Ningaloo. We're expecting temperatures this afternoon and evening, like I said, to approach 50, potentially up towards 51 degrees. Lyndon, Mount Augustus, both expecting tops of around 47 or 48 degrees. Gascoyne Junction top of 48 degrees. It looks like those on the coast, they will be saved. Coral Bay at top of about 40 degrees expected there. It should be a little bit cooler than that as well by the looks of things. Carnarvon as well, a top of 36, with those southerlies keeping things just a little bit more milder, but you can see very, very, very warm indeed. And of course, typical for this time of the year up in this part of Western Australia, but it is still pushing very, very warm indeed, and certainly valid of some heatwave warnings, that's for sure. Warm temperatures continuing through Tuesday as well, and Wednesday they'll head down the coastline. We're expecting a hot day across interior parts of the wheatbelt, especially into the northern wheatbelt and parts of the Murchison region as well. Murchison expecting a top of 46, Morawa 46, and Moora 45. Gingin north of Perth expecting a top of 43 by the looks of things, with temperatures rising late into the afternoon. Perth expecting a top of 40 degrees with a maximum of around 2 or 3 p.m. So very warm indeed. Certainly does look like it's going to get quite warm across parts of Western Australia before that heat begins to ease off on Thursday and Friday, and then gets pushed into the Goldfielders region by Saturday and into Sunday. But yeah, certainly typical for this time of the year. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw temperatures up to about 50 degrees, so whilst Queensland's having their wettest week, it looks like Western Australia is about to have their hottest week of the year, especially up into the Gascoyne and parts of the Pilbara region. And whilst we're on Western Australia, we do have a tropical cyclone now in the making offshore, and this one has caught a lot of trackers and chasers by surprise by the looks of things, considering it has just kind of blown up over the last 72 hours. It's now a significant tropical low at this time, quite a powerful one at that, as it races along the coastline or north of the coastline from Western Australia, and you can see over the last couple of hours it's done a really good job of blowing throwing up convection and beginning to cause some significant rotation around its center. So it's certainly not far away from becoming a tropical cyclone this time. And let me tell you, considering the fact that this system, whilst it's not at this point, it is expected to remain a small system throughout the remainder of its lifetime, it is going to become quite powerful, especially considering the very favorable sea temperatures that are ahead of this system here. We're looking at a very powerful tropical cyclone in the making. And let me show you exactly what I mean here by looking at the forecast from the Eastern Rebef forecast model, which isn't normally a highballer forecast model. Generally, the Eastern Rebef does kind of do a very good job, or even a bit of a lowball job on the forecast for these tropical cyclones, but you can see rapid development and intensification expected throughout the remainder of today. And the fact that this system remains a very small system through Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, when it should reach its peak intensity sometime around Wednesday afternoon, I reckon this system will get up to about Category 4 status on the Australian scale here, potentially even a little bit stronger than that, maybe up towards high-end Category 4 status. I would not be surprised if we got a Category 5 strength tropical cyclone out of this. It would not surprise me in the slightest to actually come around Wednesday or Thursday. It's just really unlikely at this time, so I wouldn't really be getting your hopes up for it at this time. And of course, no threat to Western Australia, no threat to West Australia's territories as well on the Cocos-Keeling Islands and also up in the Christmas Island area. There is absolutely no threat to land by this system here, which is very good news indeed, because this is going to be a very powerful tropical cyclone, and certainly one that we would be taking very, very seriously across West Australia's coastline. But yeah, in terms of intensity as well, from the GFS forecast model, both major forecast models calling for a strong, a very intense system, and by the looks of things, quite a powerful system with a set-in-stone forecast. There's basically no discrepancies between the forecast models in terms of track or intensity, and we've just gone through all four of them as well in the last couple of minutes. So we're certainly looking at a set-in-stone forecast here for a very powerful tropical cyclone up to, like I said, Category 4 or high-end Category 4 status here. It'll take a lot for this system to get Category 5 status, but it certainly has the world at its feet. It's certainly going to have some very good conditions ahead of it. Sea temperatures where it is right now pushing 30 degrees Celsius in the formation of this system here, 30 pushing 31 actually on the southern side of this system here. And as you get further out to sea, between 28 and 29 degrees Celsius sea surface temperatures. They do get a little bit cooler as you get south of Indonesia, around the Cocos-Keeling Islands and Christmas Island here, where this system's going to be tracking. You can see sea temperatures between 27 and 28 degrees. That's a little bit more hostile for a tropical cyclone, and it won't be able to get up towards Category 4 or 5 status there. But if it does get a very good start to life over the next 6 to 12 hours, which it's basically expected to do and basically guaranteed to do at this time, the Bureau of Meteorology expecting it, and every reasonable forecast model and forecaster is also expecting this to have a pretty good start to life, then it's unlikely that this system won't get up towards a powerful tropical cyclone status. But if it faffs around and gets itself over these waters here, it will be left very disappointed. It'll leave a lot of trackers and chasers as well very disappointed, that is for sure. That is very good news that it's not going for Western Australia. I don't think we could handle two disasters on two different sides of Australia coinciding with each other. Definitely that one in Townsville, though, that is one for the history books. That's one for the record books as well in terms of rainfall and the flooding. That has been just a disaster, and there's no two ways about it. If you have the means to help as well around the Townsville area, if you live or work around Townsville and you're able-bodied enough to help, they're going to need everyone. They're going to need all hands on deck, and the only thing preventing me from driving over there is just the fact that it's on the other side of the country, the exact other side of the country. But I hope I've played my part in proper good forecasts for the North Queensland coastline. I really hope that I've helped people make the right decisions up there, and yeah, certainly the weather event just there, and the emergency is just beginning now with swift water rescues expected all day. Plenty of calls for help being reported over the last 24 hours as well. Townsville and its surrounding areas, especially further north of Townsville up to about Ingham and into the Cardwell Gap area, some really, really significant rainfall observations and some really significant flooding, and it's just really sad to see, because these people, they do not deserve it one bit up there, and they didn't deserve the late warnings as well that were released by the official agencies. They really needed that extra day or two to prepare for these systems up here, and if we had that extra day or two of notice, it wouldn't have stopped the flooding, that's for sure, but people would have been more adequately able to prepare for their homes and houses, and being able to sandbag properly and get stuff to higher ground, get themselves to higher ground as well. I mean, a lot of people have been left stuck on roofs as a result of this weather event here, which is just sad and completely un-Australian as well, and they would have been able to get prized belongings out of their homes as well. A lot of keepsakes up there have no doubt been absolutely obliterated by the floodwaters, which again is just really, really sad to see, and it does hurt to be able to forecast this kind of stuff and then for it to eventuate. I never wanted 1500 millimeters, and this is one of the cases where I was hoping to be dead wrong, and it really does hurt when you make a forecast like this and it does end up being right as a tracker. It is really sad to see, and it has been a really sad time for the northern parts of Queensland. It's going to take them a long time to recover. So my thoughts and feelings with all of you up there around Cardwell, Ingham, Townsville and along the coastline. It really is a very sad time. It's going to be a very hard time as well, but they are resilient up there, and if a flood recovery can happen anywhere around Australia, it is of course in North Queensland. Anyways, that is all that I have time for today. A special shout out of course to the channel sponsors. Their names are on screen right now, and their support has been much appreciated over the last couple of days as well. There, the reason I've got access to all of this software, so again, their support is much appreciated. But that is all from me today, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.